Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is design. What if we were to actively be designing our lives? If we partnered with our greater intelligence in a more conscious and deliberate way, what might that look like in um, in our life design? So we'll be exploring potentials and possibilities and maybe how we can harness them in our magnificent lives. So uh, before we get started, let's just take a couple minutes to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And let's, as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, today we're talking about design and what would it look like to be an active and conscious participant in the design of our lives. And I think that the undercurrent of this conversation, good morning, Robin, welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. We're talking about designing our lives and what might that look like. And I tend to believe that there is a greater design for our lives and for the way our lives unfold. And um, my my context, not saying it's true, but it's where kind of where I come from, is that there is a greater orchestration or a greater um, theme or rhythm that kind of guides our lives into opportunities, into different expressions, and that may be guided by our higher self that is presenting us with all different opportunities for learning and growth and expansion. And we don't always take advantage of those opportunities, but uh, what if we tried, what if we intended a more conscious awareness and partnership with those intentions? And how might we do that? And so we talk a lot about connecting to the impulses of your heart, the authentic impulses of expression that are coming from your heart, the drive, the yearning, the desire, um, the calling that emanates from our deepest heart and soul. And one of the ways that I think that we can be more consciously engaged in our own evolution and the design of our lives is to pay attention to those impulses, those drives, those calls for expression, that essence that is asserting itself into the world, that is calling for our attention, and to feed those impulses. Now, I'm not talking about frivolous impulses necessarily. I'm talking about the persistent whispers, or the persistent calling. Sometimes maybe it's not a whisper at all. Maybe it's just a deep, deep calling forward that is perhaps that greater self calling us into our expression. I was listening to Bashar. Bashar is someone, is a channeled entity, and I don't recall the name of the guy who channels him, but it was interesting he was talking about manifesting and law of attraction. And he was saying, it's not that we need to learn to attract. It's not that we need to effort at that at all. That we already have this frequency that is attracting our essence, expression, opportunities, possibilities. It's already being attracted to us. What we need to do instead is to release those things that are obstructing what we're attracting. We need to release our resistance, the impediments to the receiving. I thought this was a really interesting kind of flip on our general understanding of how law of attraction works, that it's already being attracted. We already have the frequency that's calling those opportunities forward. And we put up all these blockades, these impediments to receiving those things that are going to most deeply nurture our expression and our soul. And so in becoming a conscious participant in the design of our lives, perhaps one of the greatest things that we can do, maybe one of the greatest contributions that we can make, is in releasing our resistance. And this resistance shows up in a multitude of ways. It's not saying, oh, I don't want that, or stay away necessarily. The resistance can be showing up as beliefs about ourselves, about our worthiness, about how things work, about who we are. Oftentimes, what repels the things we're trying to attract is our experience of ourselves, the limiting of our experience of ourselves, the history that we pull from the past and project into the future, the ideas about how things are and how we are. And as we perpetuate those patterns of thought and being, we are creating or perpetuating certain frequencies, if everything is energy, and I tend to believe it is. I mean, it's scientifically proven, I guess, that everything is energy. Then it makes sense that one of the biggest ways that we can facilitate our greatest expression, growth and expansion, is by freeing any blockages to the free flow of energy. And that's what happens when we have these beliefs that are creating a frequency that is kind of can be like a force field pushing things away. Oftentimes we think our beliefs are expansive, but many of our beliefs, instead, maybe all of our beliefs, are limiting rather than expansive, because it kind of locks us into a particular perspective, a particular container, so to speak. And our beliefs become sort of the filters through which we experience the world. I watched a really wonderful TED Talk over the weekend, and it was for the second time. I really recommend it. It's called I think it was called My Stroke of Genius, or My Stroke of Awareness, something close to that, by Dr. I think her name is Jill Bolte Taylor. She's a brain scientist, and she had a stroke. And she was able, in the process of having the stroke, to recognize what was going on in her brain. And in this talk, she made such a magnificent distinction between the experience of the right brain and the left brain. And in the process of having this stroke, her left brain went offline. The left brain is the brain, the part of our brain that analyzes and categorizes. It's a linear kind of thing, and it tries to make sense of things and makes associations. And the right brain is the expansive self. And she really expressed this so magnificently. She said that in her experience, she was seeing herself in a very, very different way. She was in as a way that was unfamiliar, like that her body wasn't something that her experience of her body was very different than it had previously been. It was like, what is this thing? It's wild, like it, and it wasn't her. And she said she saw the blending of the molecules and the energy of her body blending with the surroundings, and that she couldn't discern the distinction between what was her and what was not her, and that she had this incredible connection to this greater whole, and all was one, and everything was connected. And it was very interesting, because what she was describing is an experience of beingness without the constraints of the left brain trying to figure it all out and make it all make sense and keep everything separate. She said that the experience of the right brain was unitive, that it was wholeness, that it was connected, that everything was inseparable. And the left brain creates the sense of me, of I, as separate and distinct. And our culture, maybe just by nature of our brain, has been exceedingly left-brained, very much about separation and the conversation that culturally, the cultural conversation that is emerging is one of greater unity, greater wholeness, greater connectedness. And it's very interesting to be looking at the parallels between the left and the right brain function and this movement from separation to connection. But again, let's go back to this idea of curating our experience, or becoming a more active participant in the design of our lives. If we can release, perhaps it's more of this left brain thinking, if we can release more of that and move more into the unitive piece, then we open our capacity, perhaps, to experience the tides of our higher selves intentions, that we can become more sensitive to and more responsive to this greater ebb and flow, this greater movement, this greater sense of purposeful expression. And when I say purposeful, it's not the kind of purpose that we identify from our day-to-day doingness, but a connection to the greater tides of life itself, that we become more connected to that flow, and maybe the will of life to express itself. One of the things that we've been exploring together is how we are an expression of life, rather than I, me as a bounded, important entity. Instead, that what I know as I, me, has a unique expression for the energy of life and its movement and its expression. So serving life, serving that that greater intention of life expressing itself through your unique vessel, your uniqueness. And that is one mode of life's expression, rather than something that is bounded by our own our own sense of isolated or separate self. And so maybe, again, to circle back around, maybe one of the greatest ways that we can serve this design, that we can support an active engagement in the design of our lives, is to become less and less identified with the things that we think or know about ourselves, to move into an exploration of what is emergent within us in terms of the will to create, the desire to express or explore, discover. That so often, this is something that I've seen so often, is that we might have these wild and crazy dreams. And I don't mean sleeping dreams, I mean like dreams for our lives. And we allow our limited sense of self to crush those dreams before they ever begin, rather than allowing ourselves to expand into them. We shut them down, we close them out, we defend against them, because in order to pursue those dreams, it would mean that we might have to be bigger than we imagine ourselves to be. It might mean that we would need to defy the ideas of those around us of who we are, and the ideas of who we are that we hold for ourselves, and of our capabilities. And so the power to step beyond those constraints, the power to step beyond the limitations that we impose upon ourselves and that others impose upon us, that we accept oftentimes, comes from, in my experience, service to something greater than ourselves. And that deeper calling that allows us in our service to transcend ourselves. So to make a commitment to something larger than ourselves calls us then into expansion, calls us into defying the self-perceived limitations or the limitations that are imposed upon us externally. But this calling to a greater purpose allows us to transcend our ego-based identity limitations, to move into an expression that expands, that has to expand our sense of who we are. You know, that it's ironic perhaps that in letting go of our ego identified limitations, you know, we often think of ego as something that's all puffed up, but oftentimes we perceive ourselves, again, it's ego, it's ego being kind of the thing that is the interface between us and the world. I don't have this awful idea about ego being a terrible thing. It's our interface, and sometimes it can be all blustery and puffed up, and other times it's contracted and constrained, and other times in its balance there's a permeable, it's like a permeable membrane, this exchange of energy and communication. In that balance, the ego becomes that membrane rather than the pushing or the pulling, I think. Anyway, so perhaps the greatest way that we can assist in the design of our lives is by listening. We were just talking about purpose and committing ourselves to something greater than ourselves. It's kind of a way that we can, by transcending ourselves, we find ourselves and we find our greater expression, and we become more I don't know, all these different words are coming to mind, more loyal, more digital, more vigilant or diligent expressions of life. that we become, and as a byproduct, we become more vital, we become more energized, we become more alive as we push these limits. So I've been learning about limbic system impairment and how that can result in all kinds of symptomology. And as a culture, we typically go after the symptoms and try to fix the symptoms without recognizing what the cause is, what the foundation is. And one of the things that I came across is that learning, true learning, which is going to our edges, pushing our edges, that true learning helps us to become it, to create neuroplasticity, the ability of our brain to generate new, to heal in all kinds of ways. So Robin says, well spoken, pay attention to your thoughts, find the positive in your ways along your journey. Thank you, Robin. Yes, we have the ability to reframe all the time, and we have the ability to retrain ourselves and to go to those edges. And as we go to those edges expand. And as they expand, our expression expands. And I think that we have the ability by kind of pushing those edges to move into greater connection, greater wholeness, greater oneness. And through that greater wholeness, oneness, connection, we have the ability to experience greater fulfillment and greater expression. And a greater sense of alignment within ourselves and with our purpose in the world. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel, and my Facebook pages as well, Mira Rubin. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And it's always, always, always a privilege and a pleasure to spend this time with you, exploring life together. So until next time, so much love to you.